Hey guys, Troll 9002 here. It is 12:08 a.m. on 11/14/2021. I have spent at least 2 days, I think Friday and today, sleeping. I have a head cold going on that I brought home Thursday or Wednesday or Thursday. I took a coworker home in the rain, but I had to clean out my passenger seat so she would have somewhere to sit. So I ended up having myself out in the rain longer than I wanted to be, but at least she got a ride home. That's just how it is. And I have this horrible head cold that I spent 2 days, it's been in my head. And it's starting to drop now. I'm sure you can hear that it's starting to drop into my chest. I can battle a head cold in the chest all day. I know how to take care of that. So I'm working on getting better because I got to get to work on Monday. And hope you guys are doing well. Plus, y'all know I'm cold intolerant. And we're expecting 38 degrees tonight. But I have my fleece on. I have my Sherpa over here. I have a heater in front of me, the little fireplace one. It's adorable. Anyway, tonight's story is called Jade the Mermaid. I decided to skip the car talk for this week because, well, it's a little late and the week is over. So I figured I'd just go ahead and finish writing the story that I started before Halloween and see if I could finish it after Halloween, and I did. So here it goes. It was a cold afternoon deep down in the Atlantic Ocean. The tides had changed and the red tide was coming. The king of the mermaids was bored, and so it was decided that the warrior mermaid named Jade should be sent to the crazy tourist town to look for her long-lost sister, Ariel, and her friends, as they had been missing for quite some time. It was an undersea magician that turned Jade into a human with legs, only he had her on land before he did it. Jade understood her role and what she needed to do, and was quite ready to get her mission over with so she could be home. Jade did not like to be away for long, but she didn't mind trekking places to experience something new either. And she had never been to a tourist town, but it was going to be something she would never forget. And so it was the day for her to leave, and as always, she was prompt in reporting for duty, and the magician poofed her and landed her in some random place that had no tourist in it, then poofed her again, and she was in a different place that had some folks in it, but not quite touristy folks. And then there was a third poof, and finally she landed in a spot with a bunch of people that could be considered a tourist place. So she just assumed that that was the place that she was supposed to be. It was so very full of touristy people, and she had no idea how she was going to find her long-lost sister Ariel. But where to start? Sorry. She had legs, and those were her only mode of transportation. And she needed to get food because her tummy was rumbling. And knowing monsters hang out at the most coolest places, she entered a place called the Monster Mash. And thinking it was a dance rave for monsters, she just realized that it was where weird people hang out. And she ran into an odd fellow named Odin. Thinking he was Odin of past days, she quickly made friends with him and had a lovely time dining, drinking, and talking. But when the fun was over and the food had been consumed, it was time to find that dwelling place. Jade said her goodbye and went on her merry way. Without becoming frantic, finally she found her place of dwelling and settling in for the night. The next day, as the rain fell, she grew weary and had no idea where to start. But then as the rain came, so did the cold. Now, Jade was a warrior, yes, but she was cold intolerant and didn't want to venture out in the weather. Having only her feet as transportation, she pushed herself out onto her mission, walking around sadly, kind of moping, hoping she could figure out a way to achieve the end of her mission. As night fell, Jade felt that she had asked every person in town, and she felt that it was not safe to walk around a touristy town at night by herself. And as Jade returned to her room, she had the comfort of the river that was nearby, that she could hear. And as she slept, she kept waking up from horrible dreams and nightmares. It was nothing to her. She was used to them. The battles she had been through, both mentally and physically, were so far in the past, and only surfaced when she doubted herself. Plus, it was her first night in an unfamiliar dwelling place. And so the next day she ventured out on her mission to find this aquarium that the people said merfolk lived at, and find out whether or not her long-lost sister was being held captive there or not, or if any tourists there knew anything more. It was an odd day out there in the human world, as bunches of tourists were dressed up in costumes and consuming candy. Who does that? I mean, really? As she walked down to the middle of the town, there was a big yellow building that caught her eye, and as she approached closer and closer, she saw little mermaids and oceanic creatures walking around. It was an oddity for sure, but for anyone who knows the name Ripley, which Jade had heard of him, so she was not surprised to see all this weirdness walking around his aquarium. And as she walked up to the ticket booth, confetti came flying out, scaring the mess out of her. And a big winner bell, ding, ding, ding. And the man behind the counter said, "Your costume wins! Congratulations, you're our costume of the day. You earn free admission into the aquarium. Step this way." Still confused, Jade just went with the flow of the people and the flow of the water. And it was a while she was in the jellyfish exhibit, and she met a wizard. He was human wizard, so Jade was doubtful he could help her on her mission, but couldn't hurt to ask. And just as she was about to ask, a killer shark swam just over her head, and crouching for cover, thinking it was going to eat her, the wizard helped her up, thinking it was funny, and told her that he had a force field around them, so nothing could hurt them. Jade believed him, and as she moved through the different places, she asked many sea creatures if they had seen Ariel or her friends, and didn't answer. They didn't answer because either they couldn't hear or they couldn't speak Jade's mermaid language. I've recently learned that most fish do not speak human, but that's beside the point. Finally, Jade made it out of the aquarium with no forward movement in her mission. Having no idea what to do from there on, she kinda talked herself into giving up, and fell under the enchanting spell of the human wizard, who seemed to know a pretty good amount of facts and such about the area they were in. And so, with no other leads, Jade decided to tag along with the wizard for the day, just to see what she could find out, or learn what she could. And suddenly it was getting dark. Jade had no idea where the day had gone, but she didn't learn a thing, and was not one step closer to finding her long-lost sister Ariel. As Jade walked to her room and closed the door, she could feel something different happening in her life. The wizard had done some kind of black magic on her. As she looked in the mirror, where there were once scars, the scars were gone, but only a few rest from battles past were still there. Using something called Wi-Fi in a computer that her merman magician poofed in her luggage, Jade figured out exactly where Ariel was. She was not even in the same state, and their father, King Triton, had already dragged Ariel back into the sea for her punishment. And Jade knew her time was up and the mission was over. Thankful to not be under the spell of the human wizard anymore, Jade felt her warrior strength come back, and the power that she once had was restored. But the scars that had been earned in battle were still gone. Whatever, Jade said. When can I come home? It was then the merman magician told her the real reason she was sent into the world, and it was not on a mission to save her long-lost sister, but to find herself and make a family in the human world and find her mate that was created for her, because the one in the mermaid world was lost in an undersea battle. And rather than leave her as a lone mermaid, her father hoped she would find a man that would be her mate. It was then that Jade realized maybe it was the wizard. But could it be that easy? After all, The human world is a cruel place, and there are a lot of crazies in it, like me. I'm crazy. I know a few more of you are crazy, but you're in the closet. I've seen the real you. No worries, your secret's safe with me. Anyway, so, trying to process all the information, Jade became tired and fell asleep for the night. And listening to the river beating on the rocks with great fury from all the rain, Jade turned angry, thinking of how she had been deceived, and how her whole life she had been led to believe that the nagging feeling she always had about being alone was the truest statement that anyone had ever told her. And everyone told her she was wrong instead of letting the reality be true. As she awoke to another morning in a tourist town, she was dumped in, apparently never to be able to find her way back to the sea, as her legs were now permanent. And so, ousted, hurt, and alone, Jade started to regret and everything she had ever done for the mermaid nation. But you know what it wasn't. Jade had faith that something good could come out of the whole thing. I mean, after all, she did meet a human wizard, right? And she befriended a weirdo named Odin. Mind you, the word weirdo for Jade in this sentence means awesome. All at once, as the realization that she was on her own, it was that her warrior scales fell off and disappeared. And she had turned into a full human. Even though her warrior scars were still there, and the one thing the merman magician did for Jade was he poofed her one heck of a wardrobe, yes, and a nice nest egg bank account and a house in Florida. And though he tried to erase her memory of what happened, alas, he did not have the magic strong enough to do that. As she dropped one wall that was her natural home and built up another one, her human wizard called to see if she was up and stirring yet. Not knowing the hour of the day or really where, why, or how, she simply went with the flow. Said, "Yeah, what's up?" The wizard told her to meet him in a specific location, and they would have some fun that day. What is fun, though? There is no fun in a mission. There is no fun in looking for someone. How am I supposed to do that when I haven't found my long-lost sister yet? Eventually, after getting past all those thoughts that flooded her mind, she chunks them all out the window into the sweet flowing river, which was no longer angry against the rocks, but flowing smoothly through as it should. Jade took her cue from the river, and intrigued by the possibilities of the day, so she just did what she was told and met up with the wizard. And that is when she encountered her first ride in a rolling contraption. It was fun and they did much that day, but when the day was over, Jade knew she had to explore her new home in Florida, which was 2 states away. And as Jade and the wizard parted ways, is when the mountain they were on tried to eat Jade's rolling contraption, but thank heavens that Odin was there to stop it. It was with his limited power as the wizard stood there with a bewildered look on his face, and it was then Jade realized that the wizard was just a man and had no magic power. Which didn't matter because somehow he had put her under a spell. And though Jade could not put into words what the spell was, it was like what humans call fun or jolly or happy or something like that kind of spell. Knowing it wouldn't last long as Jade read the long directions and driving time to get to her house, it all faded into reality that she herself was just a human and had lots to learn by herself in the upcoming whatever she had left in her lifespan, which mermaids never survived too long out of the water without their magic, or their men, or their fathers. It was a quick goodbye, and that day her life ended, knowing that she had been deceived not once but many times by both family and strangers knowing it all. And there she was left to try and sort and figure out who was telling the truth and who was telling stories and why she was ousted from her sea home. And the hurt was so great that the ocean-dwelling creatures started beaching themselves to try and cheer Jade up. And as she heard this, she ran to the ocean side to push or put critters back into the water, and in doing so became entangled in a jellyfish bloom. Thinking they were bringing Jade home, they dragged her all the way back to her father, the king, but not realizing she couldn't breathe underwater anymore, Jade died a slow, agonizing death, paved by good intentions. And there was nothing her father could do to bring her back, and nothing the merman magician could do to bring her back. The only thing that Jade's father could do was look inside her heart and see what her last feeling was. And her heart had grown jade green with envy of her long-lost sister who had it all. And as he looked further into her heart, he could see that she had a few good times in her life. That's all that mattered to her. But Jade didn't have to worry about anything anymore. And she was consigned to Davy Jones' locker that day. It was 4 million years ago today. I'll never forget it. I was the only mermaid that made it out of the battle between the merman magician and the king. No one knows what the fight was about, but I did. I was the one who told them both it would never matter who won the battle. It would never bring Jade back. And as life got back to normal under the sea and Jade became a memory or a tall tale or folklore or myth, a story among the merfolk of the deep, I will always remember that if it wasn't for her, I would not have earned my warrior scales. And if it was not for her, I would not have been inspired to fight for my mermaid country. And it's a shame that something meant to be helpful is what ended up ending her life. Fun fact of my research on jellyfish. Did you know that a group of jellies can be called a bloom, swarm, or a smack? So saith Google. Jellies are interesting. You should look them up. Hope to catch you on the next page turn. One will likely be a Troll After Dark pretty soon, as it's the holiday season, and thank God I have more hours. Till next time, have a great week. It's Troll 9002 signing off. Take care.